So the question is, should the policymaker account for values that are not related to happiness? I argue that the goal is to maximize the well-being, namely happiness, of the individuals, and nothing else. By making this argument, I sympathize with the philosopher Singer, who put it this way: but how can something matter if it does not matter to anyone, or to any group of beings? But there are scholars who think differently. They emphasize what is called non-individualistic values. Such values do not depend on subjective views of the individuals. They are objective, namely their justification does not depend on the happiness of the individuals. Some of these scholars are very prominent. Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum, for example, emphasize functional capabilities, such as the ability to live to an old age, engage in economic transactions, or participate in political activities. Sen, an economics Nobel Prize winner, looks to nourishment, shelter, physical mobility, and the ability to take part in the life of the community. Rawls, who we've mentioned before, considers the distribution of something he calls primary goods, which includes rights and liberties, opportunities and powers, and income and wealth. I, like others whose views I share, such as Louis Kaplow, find most primary goods, capabilities, and functioning to be means for achieving utility, that is, happiness. They are instrumental rather than intrinsically valuable to the individuals. It is also unclear to me how the list of primary goods or capabilities is determined. If not based on what the residents desire, then on whose desires are they based? There are many scholars who argue that there are values that should be taken into account by the policymaker in addition to the subjective feelings of the individuals in society. Some people argue that the following thought experiment, introduced to the literature by the philosopher Robert Nozick, proves that non-individualistic values are important. Assume that there is a pleasure machine. You can get hooked up, like in the movie The Matrix, and the machine stimulates your brain, and you feel maximum pleasure all the time, better than any orgasm, all the time. Would you want to be hooked up to such a machine? Most people answer that they would not. They want their lives to be meaningful. They want to feel they've achieved something. They want their happiness to be derived from something that happened for real. Do you remember a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Total Recall? There was a possibility in the movie to buy the memory of pleasurable things, such as a wonderful vacation. After you buy it, you remember the vacation as if you have experienced it yourself. When I saw the movie many years ago, this option seemed unappealing to me. The movie from 1990 is amazing in the sense that it combines the importance to our happiness of what we remember, what Kahneman referred to years later as the remembering self, and Nozick's pleasure machine thought experiment. And this is exactly it. People want, namely have a preference for, the pleasure to be based on reality, not to be artificially induced. This is not akin to saying that we want the policymaker to maximize something other than individualistic well-being. The pleasure machine thought experiment merely shows that subjective well-being of individuals is a broader notion than material hedonistic pleasure. People care about other matters as well. They have a preference for their lives to be meaningful. Hence, it does not mean that the policymaker should maximize something other than the individual's happiness. Happiness should be determined according to the individuals and not according to any analyst's view of what should constitute well-being. It is important to note that once the policy maximizes something in addition to happiness of the individuals, as Sen, Nussbaum, and many others do, it does not maximize the happiness. In other words, the policy comes at the expense of some happiness of individuals that otherwise would have been attained. Moreover, it can be theoretically proven that if the policymaker is required to maximize something in addition to individuals' happiness, there could be policies that would make everyone in society worse off. but would nevertheless be justified under the assumption that not only happiness matters. What do you think might justify sacrificing happiness? According to these non-individualistic scholars with whom I disagree, the value of equality is often mentioned as important per se, for itself. That is, important even if it does not contribute to the happiness of individuals. This means that there will be circumstances in which the policymaker will promote equality, even if it decreases the happiness of each and every individual in society. Let me explain. Let's assume that the policymaker can increase the income of each and every individual in society by adopting a certain economic policy. All of them will be in a better position than they were before. But let's further assume that this policy will also increase income inequality. Although the ability to consume of each member of society will increase, some members will be made relatively even better off than others. As I see it, individuals may have a preference regarding equality. Clearly, having a greater ability to consume, or being richer, increases each individual's happiness. But the inequality may reduce the happiness of some of the individuals. Those who care about inequality and are saddened about its increase, as well as those that suffer from the fact that others receive more income from this policy than they do.